I want to talk about economic development a bit now. So we mentioned this earlier, but Kosovo has outperformed many of its neighbours, I'm going to say all of its neighbours, in pretty much every area over the last few years. And I want to talk in the context of economic development. What are the accomplishments that this government has had specifically in this area? But also, what are the challenges that you faced? And looking forward, what challenges are there?
Well, when you start a government mandate, you usually start by presenting the key objectives. And our key objective was jobs and justice, in addition to other accompanying goals, but jobs and justice were the key goals of the government. And then whether you were successful in this, you develop indicators that will tell you whether you are on the right track and whether you are outperforming or not the neighboring countries. Usually the numbers that you use is the increase in per capita GDP over the period, the budget performance, the movement on the level of public debt, and the number of jobs created or formalized. In all these areas, Kosovo has outperformed. For example, if you look at the change in budget revenues, we managed to increase the budget by 2/3 in less than 2.5 years. So this is immense. There is no other country in Europe that has reproduced this, let's say, in the last 2 decades. And then the question is, but which policies led to that? This creates further confusion because it's not that we have undergone a substantial fiscal reform. So we had the same tax rates, the same marginal taxes, the same tax authorities and the custom authorities, but much better performance. Then we see the sources of this achievement in 2 elements. First one is the lack of corruption. So it means that this additional hundreds of millions, they were still here in Kosovo, also in the previous period, but they ended maybe in private pockets instead of the state budget. So now they are going where they're supposed to go. And second, there is a dividend on democracy. People were reluctant to pay taxes because they had the belief that their taxes were being misused. Now that there is a trust in the new government elite, there is a stronger willingness to pay the tax obligation. And maybe the third element that you could add is the good design of intervention packages of the government that somehow link the benefits of the business community to the number of jobs formalized. So we have managed to formalize more jobs in less than 18 months than in the last 20 years. So actually in the last 20 years we had an increase in the informality. Now we have around 15,000 jobs formalized. So now in the area of per capita GDP, we also have the highest growth rate cumulative for the last 3 years in the region. If you look isolated, if you remove the year of pandemic, Montenegro has outperformed us, but this was because they had a larger decline during the pandemic. So net effect is larger in Kosovo. And another element that is crucial and which we use somehow to dismantle the narrative created by the opposition that the business community is struggling in Kosovo is the increase in corporate income taxes. In less than 2 years, the revenues from the corporate income taxes have increased by 63%, despite the fact that there were no increases in the marginal tax rate, which shows that the same business community has managed to register 60% more profits in only 2 years. So this sends the message outside that Kosovo is a good location to do business. Another element that is worth mentioning is that we have secured that these additional revenues generated from the state budget, from the tax authorities and the custom authorities, is then used by the government to ensure that this outperforming economy is sustainable. So we have tried to make sure that this performance of the economy is not detrimental to our fights to reduce inequalities in the society. So for the first time in history, we have introduced universal child allowances. We have introduced universal maternity leave coverage for those women that do not work at all. This year, this December, we also started something new in the region, something that could be interpreted as the negative income tax credit. We are paying back to households part of the tax revenues in line with the amount of annual income that they have generated. The idea is that households that have generated income less than a given threshold get some of the taxes paid back, especially those that are related to the expenses for kids. Mm-hmm. So imagine that we calculate given amount of money that a parent should spend on kids, and then we have calculated how much value of the tax will be included in these goods, and we are paid that money back to the households. I think this is a family-friendly policy in all areas that is intended to make the policy sustainable. In the same time, we have managed to fight poverty by creating 62,000 new jobs in the economy.
This was going to be my next question about tackling the issue of poverty, but you've covered it there. And these family-friendly policies, I mean, it makes me kind of want to come and live here.